Alright, I'm gonna play Zulaport Cutthroat. And it's your go. Meatball, it's your turn. Meatball, your turn. Hey everyone, it's Mostly Casual Commander, I'm BK, and first thing I'd like to thank Jacoby S for supporting us on Patreon. Kovacs is playing Elas Ilkor, Sadistic Pilgrim, an Orzhov colored aristocratic deck trying to drain out his opponents. I'm playing Braids, Arisen Nightmare, trying to make my opponents sacrifice all their stuff and benefit in the process. One of our favorite guests is back. Chris is playing Jodah the Unifier, his Wooburg colored I Care About Legendaries deck. And Kyle is playing Meria, Scholar of Antiquity, hoping to storm off with Meria's second ability and low cost artifacts. We don't like to waste time here, so let's get right into the gameplay. Kovacs will play a Plains as his land for turn, followed by an Esper Sentinel. Pretty good for turn 1. On my turn I play a Swamp, and I follow that up with a Skull Clamp, which triggers Kovacs' Esper Sentinel, getting him a card draw. I ship the turn over to Chris, who plays Xander's Lounge, and he plays a Mox Amber. This triggers Esper Sentinel again, and Kovacs gets another card. Must be nice. On Kyle's turn he plays a Mountain, followed by a Goblin Welder, which enables a graveyard battlefield artifact switcheroony shenanigans, which is the official term for that. Kovacs drops an Isolated Chapel, and then he casts his commander, Elas Ilkor, Sadistic Pilgrim. So Kovacs will gain life when his creatures ETB, and when they die, he'll drain his opponents. He attacks me for 1 with Sentinel. On my turn I drop a Swamp Drop, and I play Dreadhorde Invasion. So this will start making me zombie army creature tokens on my upkeep, which is great. Zagoth Triome hits Chris's battlefield, and he has to pass the turn back over to Kyle, who plays a Forest as his land for turn, followed by Soul Guide Lantern, which can start exiling stuff from people's graveyards. Kovacs gets another card, Kyle decides to ping me for 1 with Goblin Welder, and ships the turn. Kovacs plays a Swamp as his land, followed by Adeline Resplendent Cathar. This triggers his commander, gaining him a life. Kovacs goes to combat, triggering Adeline, and it looks like we had a misunderstanding on the card. He only puts out 2 humans, but he should have gotten 3. I determined it doesn't really impact the game, and accidents happen. No big deal. I get a zombie army token on my upkeep, I'll lose 1 life, I'll draw my card and play a Swamp as my land for turn. I then cast Fellwar Stone, giving Kovacs another card, but increasing my mana production. What? And then I cast Mycosynth Wellspring, which allows me to go grab a Swamp and put it into my hand. Hand Swamp, and I could do that again if it breaks. Onto Chris's turn, he plays a Stomping Ground, taking 2 life to have it enter the battlefield untapped. Then he'll cast Essika, God of the Tree. She's a thick mana dork that makes other mana dorks, which sounds pretty good. On Kyle's turn, he plays a Mountain.
Would you like to make an alliance with me?
I mean, I feel like we should all work together to probably kill each other.
So make 3 alliances to kill 3 people?
Yeah, like Kovacs and I could be allies against you.
Okay.
You and me could be allies against Kyle. Kyle and you can be allies against Kyle.
Oh, okay.
And then
Fair.
Chris and Kovacs can be allies against Kyle.
That means I'm winning the game because
So-
no one's against me.
No, I'll be against you.
Okay.
I'll betray you. At some
Okay.
point. Kyle looks at me with disappointment and exhaustion, which I found very amusing. He casts his commander, Meria, and passes the turn over to Kovacs, who plays Caves of Koilos. He plays Henrika Domnathi, triggering Elas, as well as enabling some cool combat trigger effects. He craves violence.
Moving to combat, I'm gonna have each player sacrifices a creature.
Can I convince you otherwise?
Nope.
And with that, my zombie army, Chris's Essika, and Kyle's Goblin Welder are all dead. Kovacs makes 3 1/1s, which triggers Elas 3 times, gaining him 3 life. And then we all take some combat damage. And Kyle used Meria to block 1 of the 1/1 tokens, which triggers Elas, draining us all down to 30. Twinning. But then on my upkeep, I lose a life and make a zombie army token. I drop a Swamp as my land for turn, and I cast my commander Braids, Arisen Nightmare, and I think she's super swell. She makes people sacrifice things, or I could draw cards and they could lose life. I mean, it's a win-win. I play a Charcoal Diamond, which enters tapped. I move to my end step, and with Braids, I sacrifice my Mycosynth Wellspring. Nobody else wants to sacrifice an artifact, so they all lose 2, and I gain 3 cards. Then, I'll find a Swamp and put it into my hand. Chris plays an island on his turn, and it looks like he's really missing Essika, as he can't do anything.
I'm just trying to be a friendly guest here, trying to be able to come back again.
Yeah, which is correct, because you do have to buy our love.
So coffee next time? Like, what do you want?
I love pumpkin everything, so call it what you will.
I would like magic cards, please.
Alright there, pumpkin lovers, let me know if you're with me in the comments, or if you're a pumpkin hater. We could fight about it. Hashtag Team Pumpkin, hashtag Who Wore It Better, hashtag Kyle played a Jessica's Will, targeting Kovacs, gaining 8 red mana, and exiling the top 3 cards of his library. He then plays Foundry Inspector, reducing the cost of his artifact spells, and then he drops Traxos, Scourge of Krug. So this should have entered the battlefield tapped, but that gets remedied in just a moment anyway. Kyle plays Goblin Engineer, allowing him to go find an artifact and pitch it to his bin. It'll be a Sensei's Divining Top in this case. He then taps 2 of his artifacts to activate Meria and finds a Soul Ring off the top of his library. He then plays it, which then would have untapped Traxos, which we discussed after the fact. No harm, no foul. He then floats 2 mana with his Soul Ring. He plays a Forest as his land for turn from exile, casts Sylvan Library, and uses one of the floating colorless mana to pay for Esper Sentinel. He passes the turn over to Kovacs, who draws, and then he plays Bojuka Bog, nuking Kyle's graveyard, which was the smart answer because Sensei's Divining Top is a combo piece in his deck. He then plays Relic of Legends, a mana rock that makes legendaries mana rocks, which is actually pretty darn good. He moves to combat, drawing off of Henrika's ability. Adeline's ability will trigger, getting him 1/1s, and then Elas' ability triggers, getting him some life. He plays a Skull Clamp during the second main phase, and then onto my turn. I'll get a +1/+1 counter on my zombie army token with a mass. I'll play a Swamp as my land for turn, and then I'll cast Dalthi Voidwalker, so if anything of an opponent's would hit their graveyard, instead it gets exiled, and I could potentially sack Dalthi and use it. I cast Lightning Greaves, which will trigger Esper Sentinel. I will pay the 1. Then I'll make Braids super fast by equipping them to her. I throw Skull Clamp on my zombie, I swing at Chris, and feel a non-zero sum of guilt for attacking him. Then Braids will kill the zombie. Do you want to sack a creature? Oh look, you can't. You take 2, I draw. Oh. Chris has to take 2, and Kyle chooses not to sack.
I'll sack one of my humans, and then everyone's gonna lose 1 life.
We all lose our life. I'll draw 2 cards because of Braids, and then I'll draw 2 more cards because of Skull Clamp, having the zombie army token die. I have to discard, and then on the Chris's turn, he casts Thran Temporal Gateway, which is good, but he wishes he was doing more. He passes.
Sylvan Library. I'm just gonna blindly draw all 3 because I'm not a coward.
I agree with you, not a coward, Kyle. I think that's how you use Sylvan Library, even if you would die.
Tap Traxos for a green. Cast Mennonite. That'll untap Traxos.
Kyle then plays Prismatic Vista and follows that up by casting Kodama's Reach, using his 1 green floating mana to pay for Esper Sentinel. In order to save time, he also cracks his Prismatic Vista to go find a mountain, put it into play, the tapped mountain from Kodama's Reach, and a 3rd mountain into his hand. And my Dalthi Voidwalker exiled the Prismatic Vista and Kodama's Reach. He then activates Meria's 2nd ability, exiling a forest. He does it 1 more time, exiling a mountain, which is not what he wanted at all. Bad luck, old chap. On Kyle's end step, Kovacs flashes in Cathar Commando, and Elas says gain 1 life. And over to Kovacs' turn, he'll draw, and he'll play a Plains as his land. He'll cast Cliffhaven Vampire, and when it ETBs, his commander says, yo, gain a life. And then Cliffhaven Vampire says, yo, everybody else loses a life. What? He then moves into combat, and he swings his creatures out in such a way to maximize his damage at his opponents. He gets his 3 tokens.
Do I die this turn?
He drains his opponents. Henrika flips. With Adeline attacking me, I cast Defile to get her off of the board. So she'll die and trigger his commander.
She dies, everyone's gonna lose a life.
So apologies in advance. Our sequencing here gets a little bit sporty. We try to do our best to keep things clean, but sometimes it's not always the best. But anyways, Kyle and I put some blockers in front of a few of the creatures that Kovacs had sent at us. Resolve your combat damage, which you had 2 at him, right?
2, because it's Esper and that.
And with some of his creatures dying, Kovacs drains us all some more, and this will knock Chris out of the game, unfortunately. Following that, and thanks to his Relic of Legends, Kovacs taps everything for Grey Merchant of Asphodel, aka Gary. When that ATBs, it'll trigger his commander, as well as Cliffhaven Vampire, draining us some more. Then Gary will trigger enough to drain Kyle out of the game. He drains me a little more. I have nothing to deal with his board state, so I scoop it up.
Did we all die in the same turn at least?
Yes.
Oh, yeah!
And congratulations, Kovacs. Job well done. What the heck, Chris? Well, we hope you enjoyed this game featuring 4 new commanders from Dominaria United. We had a ton of fun building them and playing with them. Apologies again that this wasn't as clean as our games usually are, but we still hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you think in the comments, and as always, thank you for watching.